dia a todos. Em nome do Clube de Lisboa, sejam muito bem-vindos. Obrigada por se juntarem a nós. Podem seguir-nos no Zoom e no YouTube. Há tradução simultânea na plataforma Zoom. Basta escolher a função que aparece na parte de baixo do ecrã do computador. Hello to all of you and welcome. On behalf of Lisbon Club, thank you so much for joining us. You can follow us at Zoom and YouTube platforms. And we will have translation to Portuguese and English, and you can choose that function at the bottom of your screen. Eu sou Teresa Firmino, jornalista de ciência do Público. Este painel é sobre a perturbação da biosfera, a invasão dos plásticos nas cadeias alimentares. Inventámos este material há cerca de um século e ele hoje está por todo o lado no planeta. É o segundo material de construção humana mais abundante. E a grande questão, a grande incógnita é até que ponto é que já está a perturbar e a causar grandes danos nos ecossistemas e na saúde humana. Também temos um chat e convido todos os que nos estão a ver a deixar aí as vossas questões. We also have a chat at Zoom and YouTube platforms, so please you can leave there your questions for us. Para navegar neste problema e nesta crise do plástico a nível global, até que ponto é já uma ameaça global, porque é que é tão difícil resolvê-lo e o que é que podemos de facto fazer para resolver a crise do plástico? Temos 4 convidados em vários pontos do globo, que farão uma intervenção inicial à volta de 5 minutos sobre a sua visão do problema e como podemos solucioná-lo. Em Lisboa temos Tiago, Pitta e Cunha, Presidente Executivo da Fundação Oceano Azul. Em Bruxelas, Bernhard Friess, Diretor de Política, Marítima e Economia Azul da Direção-Geral de Assuntos Marítimos e Pescas, a DG Mar, da Comissão Europeia. Em Tóquio, Atsushi Sunami, Presidente da Fundação Sasakawa para a Paz e Presidente do Instituto de Investigação de Políticas para o Oceano desta mesma fundação. No Funchal, Eugénia Barroca, bióloga marinha e representante na Europa e na lusofonia da organização Sustainable Ocean Alliance, e esta organização está presente em Portugal através da Ocean Hub Portugal. Dr. Tiago, Pitta e Cunha, tem a palavra. Está sem som, será?
Desculpem, estava sem som.
Sim.
Muito bom dia a todos. Irei então falar em português e dizer um pouco que este é um daqueles temas que nos poderia levar a fazer apenas uma conferência. Dar os parabéns ao Clube de Lisboa por ter reunido um conjunto tão vasto de apoios, incluindo a Embaixada do Japão, para conseguir, digamos assim, debater estes temas dos oceanos nesta altura que me parece muito oportuna, que é o início de um ano que vai ser determinante para estes temas transversais ligados ao ambiente, incluindo o dos oceanos, com o ano a acabar, obviamente, em Glasgow. Mas dizia eu que isto é um tema, o tema dos plásticos, dos microplásticos, das cadeias alimentares, é um tema que ocupa muito espaço, que leva muito tempo a ser debatido, e eu irei aqui, em breves palavras, passar 2 ou 3 ideias. A primeira é que a poluição de plásticos associada ao meio marinho tem sido talvez um dos principais, digamos assim, responsáveis por colocar os oceanos na agenda internacional. De facto, os oceanos, que têm estado mergulhados numa crise profunda desde os anos 70, têm ficado à margem das principais opções políticas e económicas, quer da comunidade internacional no seu todo, em termos de Nações Unidas, quer em termos dos governos dos Estados-membros das Nações Unidas. E com os plásticos houve aqui esta grande importância que foi colocar o mar na agenda. E porquê? Porque a poluição dos plásticos é de longe o tema relacionado com os oceanos que mais mediatização atrai, que é mais mediático. Efetivamente, os seres humanos costumam ter uma ligação ao mar mais longínqua, obviamente, do que têm a ligação aos temas terrestres, e conseguem ver a floresta amazónica a arder, mas não conseguem ver os oceanos a sofrer com a crise que sofrem, não conseguem ver a temperatura das águas a aumentar, a acidificação a aumentar ou os peixes a desaparecer. E como a poluição plástica é extremamente visual, e como ela parece ter consequências extremamente negativas e diretas para a nossa saúde, para a saúde dos humanos, nós humanos que tendemos a ver as crises dos oceanos como umas crises que são importantes para as baleias e para os peixinhos, mas não para nós, as crises que são importantes para nós são as crises financeiras, são as crises das migrações, da segurança, as crises económicas. Começamos agora a perceber a crise do oceano como algo que realmente nos afeta diretamente. O segundo aspecto que me parece muito importante é falar na dimensão desta crise. É que é uma dimensão do problema, é colossal, ela é óbvia. Quando as Nações Unidas nos informam que a este nível de depósito de plásticos no oceano, quer plásticos em geral, quer microplásticos, que iremos, de facto, conseguir ultrapassar a meio deste século em massa a biomassa própria dos oceanos, ou seja, os peixes, e isso é extremamente, digamos assim, preocupante, como toda a gente intuitivamente pode compreender. Os oceanos foram feitos para ter peixes, os oceanos não foram feitos para ter plásticos. Esta dimensão é muito grande ainda mais se nós compreendermos, e com isto, digamos, é uma mensagem que me parece muito importante passar, se nós compreendermos que o problema não são apenas os 9, digamos assim, os 9 ou 10 rios que são responsáveis por 80% da poluição terrestre. E, de facto, sabemos, e isso é extraordinariamente importante, que há 10 rios no sudoeste asiático e em África que são responsáveis pela maior parte da poluição de plásticos, porque são deltas de regiões em que não há, digamos assim, um sistema avançado de recolha de resíduos, de reciclagem, e que ocasiona esse problema. Mas isso é apenas a face visível, porque se nós pensarmos em microplásticos, temos de pensar que ainda hoje, em regiões industrializadas, como a própria Europa ou os Estados Unidos, nós temos um contributo muito grande na poluição marinha, através, como sabem, das fibras dos têxteis, mas através também dos pneus dos automóveis, através, nomeadamente, dos fertilizantes, que sendo feitos com lamas provenientes de hectares, de sistemas de saneamento, digamos assim, elas próprias têm os microplásticos que vêm nesses sistemas nas hectares. Parece-me que, e aqui terminaria com uma frase quase, digamos assim, filosófica, parece-me que a humanidade utilizou os oceanos como a sua casa de banho e como a sua lixeira ao longo de todos estes milénios e até hoje. E parece-me que hoje estamos a confrontar com esse facto, mas ainda não conseguimos invertê-lo. Poucas pessoas compreendem que o oceano começa na nossa casa de banho, nas nossas cozinhas, começa em nossa casa. E a Fundação Oceano Azul orgulha-se de ter lançado uma campanha que diz que o que não acaba no lixo acaba no mar, em que explica às pessoas esses trajetos, essas trajetórias, e como é importante nós mudarmos profundamente a mentalidade e como é importante nós conseguirmos que a comunidade internacional se junte e possa, em conjunto, estabelecer acordos ao nível global que possam responder a esta calamidade. Muito obrigado, Teresa. Não queria ocupar mais tempo, espero ter ficado dentro dos minutos iniciais.
Obrigada, Tiago, Pitta e Cunha, perfeito mesmo. Passava para Bernhard Friess, em Bruxelas, depois desta ideia de que a humanidade, continuando esta ideia de que a humanidade utilizou os oceanos como a casa de banho, a sua casa de banho. Dr. Bernhard Friess, tem microfone desligado?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Teresa, and good morning to all of you. I'd like to just give a brief introduction to the problem from the European perspective, and start by simply trying to sketch out the scale of the problem that we see. If we just look at the sheer amount of plastic that is being dumped into our environment, especially into our oceans, we think that we are talking about around 13 million metric tons of plastic every year ending up in the world's ocean. Numbers are very large. There are different estimates, but all the numbers are large, and the result is that we have hundreds of tons of plastic in our oceans, hundreds of millions of tons of plastic in our oceans by now. That's one thing. The other thing is that the trends are going in the wrong direction. The plastic industry is set to grow, so is the leakage into the oceans. I read a report recently that basically says that by 2040, in 20 years' time, we will have twofold more plastic produced, threefold more plastic leaking into the ocean. The stock of plastic in the oceans will be 4 times as much as today. That is the path of business as usual. So that's one side of the picture. The other side of the picture is, of course, that plastic has a huge carbon footprint. That is because plastic is produced through a very energy-intensive process, petrochemical process, and that at the end of its life cycle, a lot of plastic is simply being burned worldwide, and the carbon footprint is very significant. Someone has calculated that by 2040, plastic will have used up 1/5 of the carbon budget that is left to us if we want to reach 1.5, still stick to 1.5 degrees warming globally. So that's a bit the scale of the problem if you look at the symptoms. But of course, we have to go deeper. We have to look at the causes. And the baseline cause, in our view, in my view, is our dependence on fossil fuels for energy, and increasingly, ever increasingly, to make new products that have to do with throwaway packaging, with single-use products, without thinking really of the harmful consequences that threaten our whole society. Now, I think it's important to realize that when we look for solutions, we have to realize that the development is very much driven by supply. It's supply-driven. It's driven by an industry, and petrochemical industry, that seeks alternative paths for growth from fossil fuels. Now that fossil energy is on its way out, that does not mean to say that plastic is bad as such. Plastic is something that can have many good and even some essential uses. But we reckon that today 50%, half of all plastic products produced, are single use. They are throwaway products. They are used once and then thrown away. And so this exponential growth of dischargeable one-way plastic problems is the core problem, and it's neither necessary in our view. It's problematic, and it's driven by supply. So what can we do? First, of course, cleaning our oceans from plastic. I read that someone recently calculated that in order to clean up the 5 large ocean gyre garbage patches, these huge patches of plastic, or plastic accumulates in the oceans, one would need 1,000 boats to filter the water 24 hours a day for 79 years, and that's only if the technology existed. So, of course, we, Europe, the European Union, we are supporting cleaning up efforts with finance, with technology, but clearly it would be almost impossible to clean up everything that's in our oceans today. So what about recycling? No doubt recycling is very important. It's an essential part of any solution. But let's bear in mind that at present, just 20% of all plastics are economically recyclable, not more. So that's a very long way to go. We have to go that way, but it's a very long way to go. And it's very important that we, as responsible citizens, of course, as consumers, we sort our garbage, our household garbage, we recycle our plastic garbage. But make no mistake, it would be quite wrong to offload the responsibility for the problem onto the consumers. The main responsibility lies with those who drive really the plastic wave. And so we need to go to the root cause. We face a systemic problem, so we need a systemic solution. And the starting point for that solution needs to be to avoid plastic in the first place. So what has the European Union done, and what is it doing? First of all, the European Union has taken a big step in the direction of finding a more systemic solution by adopting a new law 2 years ago, the Single-Use Plastics Directive. So that is regulation. And of course, we try to address a problem not only by regulation, but by working together with those who are responsible and who are the source. So the Single-Use Plastics Directive will basically start phasing out the top 10 single-use plastic items that we find on European beaches. These are things like plastic cotton buds, straws, plastic plates, plastic cutlery, beverage stirrers, these balloon sticks, these polystyrene food containers, beverage containers, and so on. So these are all products that can either be made from alternative materials or that can perhaps even be avoided altogether. And if we just tackle these 10 most found products, we are tackling around 70% of the plastic garbage in Europe that is polluting our seas and the ocean. Then secondly, we are tackling fishing gear, which is made from plastic. And interestingly, there is an amazing amount of lost and left fishing gear in the oceans that not only pollutes, but that also has the very harmful effect of catching sea animals and fish when it's floating around, when the nets are floating around without being retrieved. And then thirdly, we have introduced a key legal concept in this area of plastic, and that is the concept of extended producer responsibility. And it basically means that producers will be made responsible for the sustainable use of their products in this area. Okay, so what will come next? What will come next is our so-called Mission Ocean. So the idea behind that is to combine basically the power of the European research and innovation budget, perhaps theoretically up to €1 billion, with the initiative of citizens, with business, with local decision makers, people on the ground and other on our coastlines. And the idea is to set ourselves big, ambitious, visionary, but concrete objectives, like a kind of moonshot ambition, and to make then really a big coordinated effort to reach it. Like, for instance, no more plastic in our seas after 2030, finished with plastic pollution, or replace plastic with materials that are made from biological renewable sources, algae, for instance. Now, we have brought together experts and stakeholders with a huge range of experience to help us under the leadership of Pascal Ami. Tiago, who is with us here, has been part of that effort, a very important part of that effort. I'm sure he will say more about that, and of course, I will be happy to do too. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernhard. Dr. Atsushi Sunami, please, the floor is yours. We have to speak in English because we are having some technical problems, so we will switch to English right now.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And thank you very much for switching to English. Well, you know, Japan has a long history of collaboration and working together with Portugal. So I should be able to speak some Portugal in my historical background, but unfortunately, I had some difficulty getting some of the things that but I know Tiago for a long time, so I know what he's been trying to say. So, anyway, thank you very much for inviting me to this very important conference. And the ocean plastics is a common and agenda for all of us. And I just wanted to make a few points and a few introduction to some of the things that we are doing in terms of dealing with this problem. Let's see, is it my slides? Oh, okay. The Ocean Policy Research Institute of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation is one of the premier and a think tank sort of dedicated to ocean policy research, and since 2000. And we have been working very closely with, for instance, Azul Foundation and Tiago and myself, trying to bring the ocean to the attention to the dialogue on not only on the plastics issue, but also climate change and other global agenda. And I think ocean should play a big part of all of these discussions and in a global setting. And we are very active in engaging with the global partners in addressing this issue. And as we know that the international frameworks for dealing with marine plastic pollution has been quite number of them has been developed. Of course, we all start with the SDGs, target number 14.1. But then aside from that, this year, we are also expecting to engage in a dialogue with the Convention of Biological Diversity, CBD dialogue, which has been postponed from last year to this year, and hopefully this is going to be a very important platform. And then I just wanted to highlight some of the things that we have done in terms of hosting, for instance, the G20 Osaka Blue Ocean Vision. And at the G20 Summit, which was held in Osaka in 2019. And here, the political leaders of the G20 agree to set a goal to stop the plastic they enter to the ocean by 2050. And we are also members of the Friends of Ocean Action at the World Economic Forum. We sort of developed the argument to agree to stop plastic here from entering the ocean by 2025. So in addition to all these efforts such as at the United Nations level, the high-level panel on sustainable ocean economy and the UN Decade of Ocean Science, which is starting this year, also is addressing the marine plastic pollution. We think it's going to be a very important platform. Just a few words about the marine initiative towards the, when we have launched following the Osaka Blue Ocean Vision from the G20 Osaka 2019. And under this marine initiative, the government of Japan has launched the sort of 3 or actually 4 effective actions to combat marine plastic litter at the global scale, focusing on the one of first managing the waste going into the source of the problem, and the recovery of marine litter, and the innovation and empowerment. And we have also worked with the Japanese government on hosting last year the Japan-China high-level roundtable dialogue on the environment, which has discussed the China-Japan cooperation on the addressing the collaboration on the marine plastics issue, from the monitoring to the management. There are some technical, of course, area that we need to be still address, but the dialogue is going on at the moment. The other important issue, of course, is a collaboration with industry, academia, government, and private sector. And some examples of this effort that we have been doing, for instance, with the government of Palau, we have recently did the microplastic sampling equipment was installed on the competition boat and the companion vessel Marine Mirai during the Japan-Palau Friendship Yacht Race that we tried to survey the distribution of microplastics along this. This will also become a good tool to educate and make awareness of the importance of the marine plastics issue to general public. And we are also looking at the Arctic as a place where it's very also important to address the plastics. And you can see some of my statistics here that to show that both macroplastics and microplastics, our research community had indicated there is a high level of concentration intensity of microplastic in the Arctic Ocean as it goes all the strait goes up to the Arctic Ocean at the end. So that's where we see high concentration of the plastics. And we are this year, in this May, holding a 3rd Arctic Science Ministerial meeting here in Japan. And I hope that we all can get together, all these leading science ministers, to talk about the Arctic management and Arctic science, but also the one of which should include the topic of microplastics. So this is something that that we are hoping to do this year, and also the other programs that we initiate with our brother foundation or Nippon Foundation to combat the microplastic or plastic pollution projects domestically, targeting the prefectures, the sea coastlines of the Seto Inland Sea coast, for instance. And lastly, I just wanted to mention also that in 2025, we are planning to host the Osaka Expo, and one of the to showcase in this expo, one of the topics will be the blue innovation. And my colleagues and also the Director Friess has just mentioned that the importance of moonshot approach to convert find the alternatives to plastics, which would then replace at least the single-use plastics with a new innovation in this area, is something that we all have to work together. And we hope to showcase that in Osaka Expo 2025. With that, I would conclude my first interventions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atsushi Sunami. Eugenia Barroca, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Teresa, and thank you very much to everyone and to Clube de Lisboa for the organization of this incredible conference and all the partners involved. It's an honor to be here. So I'm going to start by showing examples of how youth in Portugal and around the globe has been acting and trying to find solutions to this big problem that we face of the plastic pollution. So first of all, I'm just going to present you really fast and briefly for who doesn't know it. So I'm representing the Ocean of Portugal, that is the Ocean Solutions Hub of Sustainable Ocean Alliance. It is an NGO based in San Francisco in the United States, but that acts globally and aims to develop leaders, cultivate ideas, and accelerate solutions. And it's one of the world's largest network of young ocean leaders, for having now more than 5,000 young ocean leaders in our network that are in more than 165 countries. In this community, there are, as the Ocean of Portugal example, other 63 ocean solutions hubs around the globe that are voluntary groups that try to bring ocean action and awareness to their communities. We founded, starting last year, for the first time, 92 microgrant projects that was to amplify the local action, and around 30 of these 92 microgrants were solutions for plastic pollution. And I'm going to tell you in a moment about one big example. We also produce like ocean literacy through webinars, and in the Ocean Accelerator program, we already until the moment supported 29 startups that are in 12 countries and raised $20 million of funding to support them. So about the Ocean of Portugal, it is this voluntary group that now is led by a team of 5 women ocean leaders. We are the voice of SUA in Portuguese for the Portuguese community, and our mission is to contribute for a sustainable future in our country. So we apply this to these 2 programs. One is based on ocean literacy, where we try to also increase the awareness of our community about this problem and others as well, and ocean policy. And we are acting in these both sectors. So ocean policy, I would just highlight this project that we are now, that is about the deep seabed mining. And in this project, Pelo Mar Profundo, we just launched a podcast that is Maré, that in the beginning will focus this topic, but then we'll open to diverse topics. So I believe that the plastic pollution will be something that we'll be really happy to discuss. And I also would like to share that we are now with the applications open for Bússola. It's our second online course, and we want to support 10 ideas, and we hope that some of these ideas are also solutions for the plastic pollution problem. So through the course, we aim to give tools as to pass an idea to a project in reality, to make the vision reality as well. and presenting some of the solutions, coming back to SUA Global and the startups that we already supported. So Planet Care, for example, as Tiago just mentioned in his speech, microfibers are one of the big problems inside of plastic pollution. And this is one microfiber filter to install in your clothes washing machine, and it can prevent that 90% of these fibers go to the water treatment fluid. So, and by that way, that avoids it to arrive to the rivers and then the ocean as well. And then also Crest foam, that it produces a compostable foam that is made of chitin of discarded shrimp shells. So it's kind of solving two problems by once. That first it was the shrimp shells was a waste in the industry. So now it's giving value, making this economy circular, and at the same time using it as a compostable material that can replace some packages and avoids all the impacts that's when they are made of plastic. And also the bioselection, one last example, and there are more, I invite you to explore, that they are trying to recycle plastics that were not recyclable until the moment, and trying to insert them in cars, in construction materials, in 3D impressions as well. So trying to create our economy as more circular as we can, and I believe that's one of the big solutions that we can do. And one example of those microgrants that are the smaller projects and local action, I'm giving an example in Japan, that is Mimizu. It was one of the first water refill apps that helps the citizens to access where they have free refilling points for their water bottle, and this avoids that people consume disposable plastic bottles in their daily life, and also eliminates the need of it and reduces consequently all the waste that is associated to it. So, and finally, like coming back to the ocean of Portugal, like locally, in our ocean policy program, we are one of the entities and groups that is supporting this campaign that is Amar e Mar a Usar e Recuperar. It was first written by CIN, a national NGO, but there's around 38 other entities and groups that support it. And basically the campaign is asking to the Portuguese government to apply a better developed deposit systems for all types of packages that we used to have. We already are familiarized, at least here in Portugal, with the glass system, but we want to apply these for all the materials, for plastic packages, metal packages, all of them. And the truth is that last year there was a step back from the government in the declaration written that was in public consultation, that it was saying that the regulation of the transition to this system would be by the choice of the industry itself. And we think that it should be by the decision of all society groups, from civil society, from NGOs, like from all the parts involved, because the industry itself is the one that have been fighting more to keep the linear system. And I think that we think that all the voices should be heard. So I also invite you to sign. And okay, this was my first intervention of sharing these solutions. Thank you very much.
Okay, Eugenia, thank you so much. Let's start the debate. Tiago, Pitta, Cunha, I will start with you. So you were one of the reporters for for the creation of this new mission for research in Europe related to oceans. And this mission has really ambitious goals: zero pollution in 2030 and zero plastic pollution arriving to oceans in 2030. Could you also explain a bit more these goals and how can we achieve these ambitious goals? Because is this realistic, or do you think is this feasible? I mean,
thank you very much, Teresa. And I understand that maybe my Portuguese was not understood by everyone, given that translation has not worked. And I wanted probably to just go back to a couple of points so that everyone
okay.
can understand them. I hope you don't mind.
no, please go ahead.
And I will address your question directly, and thank you for that question, which I think Bernhard already mentioned as well in his intervention, initial intervention. So first of all, I wanted to say very quickly two things. One is that plastic pollution on the oceans has been extremely important for the ocean agenda. The ocean agenda has been pretty much absent from the high-end agendas of the international community in the last 2 decades, compared with climate or biodiversity, for instance, which understandable as well. They are very large crises. We all know about the climate crisis, the biodiversity, species extinction, but the ocean crisis is key for both of those other problems, and it hasn't really been on the map as much as I think we all would like that it would be. And plastics has become very mediatic, plastic pollution from the ocean. Human beings consider that the crises of the oceans do not relate to them. They are important for the fish and for the whales, but not for human beings. So we are concerned with other crises that we take seriously, like migrations, securities, financial crisis, economic crisis. And I think that through the ocean plastic pollution, we realize how related we are to the ocean. This has been very important. It has launched citizen movements all over the world. It has really made the ocean now become a preoccupation, and this is very much important. The second thing I think is very important as well, for someone like me that has been for more than 20 years on ocean policies, is that pollution was not also the main issue on the agenda for the last 20 years within the ocean agenda. Pollution has been, in a way, at least for the North industrialized part of the world, we understood that we had dealt with pollution already at the 20th century. We thought that with our sewage systems, that we had dealt with it in the 80s and 90s with the last generation at that time of sewage systems. And the fact is that, unfortunately, this is not the case, and our current sewage system in the industrialized countries is responsible for most of the microplastics as well, or for a large part of microplastics, namely because we have the fibers and we have the fertilizers that are full of microplastics that comes through our sewage systems, that are the muds that are used as raw materials for fertilizers are very rich in microplastics because they use muds from our sewage systems. So plastics is very important for the oceans, and plastic is very important because it brings up this case of pollution again into the fore, and this is really important. And this takes me to your question. The European Commission has launched, has selected 5 societal challenges, including the ocean, seas and waters health, and has organized mission boards of European citizens which are experts in those different challenges. And within the challenge for the ocean and waters, it has produced a report with a vision, which is called Mission Starfish 2030, and which I think everyone should read, as it's probably one of the most progressive, I would say, reports on oceans that I am aware in the world at this moment. Not only because it is very integrated, but because it recognizes the ocean crisis and the crisis that humanity are because of this crisis, including the problems for ocean and waters. And there, I think there are very clear goals, and I finish with this. First of all, to reinforce the directive, the European directive of 2019 that Bernhard has mentioned already, so that it overcomes the goals that are expressed in that directive, so that by 2025, the EU has banned all single-use plastics from the ocean. Also that by 2030, this can be enlarged to the international community worldwide, and that all the plastics in the EU market are recyclable or reusable. This is very important, but this means that we will need the international community as a whole involved. And this is why in my initial intervention, and I went with this, we said that we need to have an international agreement for plastic pollution, or we need to go back to discuss pollution as well at United Nations, in the ocean at United Nations. And this is what the Oceano Azul Foundation has also been very much investing through Rise Up for the Oceans, which is this large platform with more than 450 organizations, which was adopted with the Sasakawa Peace Foundation of Mr. Sunami, which was one of the main partners, along with many other foundations and NGOs, and which says we really need to look into an international agreement for these matters. And I'll end up here. I'm sorry I took off.
Thank you, Tiago, Cunha. Let's hear Dr. Atsushi Sunami about that. I mean, you mentioned several goals and the year, 2030, 2050. So what is your take on that? Do you think we need an international agreement, an international United Nations agreement, binding and abiding agreement for plastic? Is this feasible?
No, I have to echo what Tiago was saying, and I think it is very important for us to take us to the next step of actions. And I think we are now all aware of the problem in plastics and how to control. But also we also have to really accelerate the innovation part of it, where in fact that we need to find the alternative materials. I think we should be able to, as in the case of not CO2 emissions per se, but I mean when we talk about greenhouse gases, and the industry are now able to replace some of the materials that goes into the air by more cleaner air. And can we find the alternatives to plastics? I think that's something that we really need to put all the efforts together. Scientists in Portugal, scientists in Japan, scientists in China, everyone should really focus on and accelerate this. And I think UN Decade of Ocean Science, which starting this year, would be a very good starting point to bring all this, our innovation, our knowledge, and our efforts to quickly find the alternative materials. And otherwise, we can, and then we have to go with this a switch from the plastics to the alternatives through the introduction of international agreements and the kind of the regulations that the Tiago and we are now working together to really put forth. And so this is two wheels.
So in your opinion, so just to clarify, so it's an international agreement is only possible if science and industry and universities, if they find alternatives to plastic. Otherwise, that will be a kind of utopic goal.
Yeah. So I think there's a area where we say regulation leads to innovation. So when somebody comes up with a very high standard of regulation, say in the California with an emission control, then the industry decides to invest on alternatives because the business as usual doesn't make their business anymore. No. So regulation, innovation goes hand in hand. And regulation also leads to innovation. The same. That's where I think Tiago and I are joining together to send a message that this business as usual is not going to be able to sustain.
So you are saying that we do really need an international binding agreement.
Yeah.
So and what year do you think that will be feasible? 2030? It's 10 years from now. Do you think that is feasible, or 2050? It's 30 years from now. It's too far away.
So well, sooner the better. And we're hoping originally that when Portugal would host this UN convention, the ocean will be a very good starting point. And unfortunately, because of the COVID, it became it has been postponed. So we'll see. But the sooner the better.
Okay, let's move to Bernhard Friess. I mean, this topic is also raising questions from our audience. And one of the questions say, what is your, I mean, Tiago Cunha already mentioned this, but this question also was also for Tiago Cunha. What is your position on a multilateral agreement to reduce plastic? How do you rate the chances of negotiating one? And what can European Union do during the years it takes to negotiate one? I mean, do you agree? What is your take on that, Bernhard Friess?
Teresa, yeah, thank you for the question. Maybe I should say first that it's one thing to set ourselves targets and agree. It's difficult enough sometimes in an international context, but to agree on targets and deadlines, and by this year we want to achieve that, and the other thing is to actually get there. And my feeling is that whatever we announce and agree, the real work starts afterwards when we have to implement these targets. Look at the Paris Agreement on climate change, 2015, 5 years ago. I think it's fair to say that none of the signatories really has done enough to even closely get to the target we set ourselves. The world set itself at the time. So it's really a matter of actually acting upon the kind of things. We have targets, we have a sustainable development goal, right? Now, on the other hand, I fully agree with what Dr. Sunami said and Tiago said, that we need an international effort. Let me give an example. If we want to remove or attenuate the pollution in the Mediterranean, which is, as you know, a hotspot for not only plastic pollution, but for many problems. You can't do that without bringing everybody on board, right? There's no point in the European Union acting alone if we don't bring on board our partners in the Middle East and in Africa and the whole sea basin of the Mediterranean. So we need that international effort, and it needs to be coordinated, it needs to be agreed, and it needs to be effective. Now, I believe all the ingredients are there, but we need to, it's technology. So indeed, finding alternative materials, stopping producing plastic from oil, basically. It's very important, and it's feasible, but we need technology, and some of the ideas that Eugenia has presented, I think, are good ones, and there are other ones, right? Like using algae, for instance, to make packaging material. It's investment. It is local development, so we need to really reach out to the ground, and you know what the Sustainable Ocean Alliance is doing. It's hugely important, and we need to reach out to the public, because without having the public and everybody really realizing how important that is for all of us, without that, it's not going to happen. It can't come top down, right? It needs to be so I think the work we need to do needs to bring on board all these things. International agreement, yes, but even more so at home, I think. We need to do our homework, and the homework needs to involve the citizens and needs to be carried by these kind of initiatives. And that's what we are trying to do. So if we go ahead with that ocean mission, we want to have the objective and the results, the kind of moonshot, but we want to be sure that it's not just another thing that's on paper, but we really put the money and also the effort and bring on board everybody who needs to contribute to have all this together to get to that result, because it is a little bit our last chance almost to tackle that problem. So 2030, good target, 10 years, but 10 years is a short time.
And about that mission, you mentioned the budget that mission will probably have. Could you clarify that point? And also, what part of that money will go to plastic pollution? And
there is. I mean, I would like to second Tiago in recommending the report. It's really a good product, a good work. It raises many issues. It does not really set out already the operational pathway that we have to go, and that's not the job. It wasn't the job of these experts, because their job was to point to the issues. Our work now in the next 2-3 months with Tiago and with his colleagues, and also with my staff, will be to work out concretely what to do. So it will probably mean trying to mobilize the European Union's research budget for the technology aspect, But as I just said, I think we have to go beyond, right? We have to try to mobilize local investment. We have to try to mobilize publicity and buy-in. And these are partly financial issues, but they're partly non-financial issues. And indeed, I think it comes back to what I said at the beginning, but also Dr. Sunami said, we may have to look again at issues of regulation, because regulation is a driver for many of these things. If we in Europe here have said that we'll phase out cotton buds or banal things such as plastic beverage containers, and I give you a very banal example. The plastic tops of beverage bottles have to be attached in the future so that you don't lose them and they don't go into the general garbage. These kind of things will trigger technology. So it's about money. It's maybe about a lot of money, not yet decided, but important. It's about many other things as well that need to fit together, right?
So in what phase if the creation of this mission is? I mean, the European Commission is considering this report, this proposal, and what will be? When do you think
we have the report? We have 5 big areas. Other areas are things like beating cancer, or carbon-free cities is one, for instance. All important issues. We are working on a plan, a concrete plan, how to put it in practice. And then indeed the Commission and I suppose not only the Commission but European institutions will decide how we proceed. So we are in that phase now of trying to translate the report into a practical plan how to get it done. And
when it will be announced, the creation
later this year. Later this year. Okay, thank you so much. Let's take the Eugenia Barroca words. I'm still with you, Bernhard Friess. Eugenia Barroca mentioned the microplastics and the textile fibers sought in the European Union as just this single-use new legislation into force this year. So what will be the next big step related to plastic pollution in the European Union and in the European Commission? For instance, microplastics. I spoke about the mission, right? So I think in the mission ocean, I think microplastics, I would think, will play a big role, and it has partly to do with technology. By the way, just as a side remark, 70% of all the microparticles come actually from car tires, right? So when you push the brake pedal of your car every time, so this goes into the water, it goes into the rivers, it goes into the seas. So there's a much bigger problem that probably is not as easy to solve. But a lot of the microplastics could, I suppose, be avoided. The microplastics that you have in personal hygiene products, in shampoos, in all kind of consumer products. And again, one part of the solution could be to find alternatives, or simply find products that work without any of these particles. And then it may well be having to go back to the drawing board and see, is there a case or not to extend regulation? That is something I cannot anticipate. It needs to be part of a bit more holistic plan. And of course, we are working very hard to implement this directive of 2 years ago that obliges our European member countries to take pretty much advanced action to try to reduce either the putting into the market or the recycling or the responsibility of producers for these single-use plastics. And that's really something that's not trivial. I think it sets in a way the standard also beyond Europe for what the industry should be doing and what authorities should be doing. So, just implementing what we have now, even before we make new plans, is very important.
Okay, thank you so much. Eugenia Barroca, you told me previously in a conversation that you are not already anti-plastics, and you have this. You are fighting for this campaign about the packages. So why? What did make you change?
Thank you, Teresa. So I think it was also the time and the experience of life, so growing up as well, but also because when I was younger, I was focusing as a teenager, learning the world, I was focusing a lot the problems. And as far as I was aware of the dimension of the problems, that they seemed so big, like for the little human that I was. So I think that I was not literally anti-plastic, but I focused so much say no to plastic, don't consume it. And I was focusing a lot the consumer actions and choices, like the citizens. And growing up, I understood, as I've been just mentioning, that we need a change, like is not only of the consumer responsibility, it's the there is a legal responsibility from government, there is a production responsibility from the industry, the EPR that was mentioned, that I believe it's a really good new system to transition that. And also because I understood that in these decades since the plastic first showed up, in the beginning, the plastic was a solution for a lot of problems, and actually it avoided like killing in the beginning a lot of animals' lives, because we were killing elephants and other animals. So now it's this big problem, and I believe that the solution passes to use it according to the life of the products where we apply them. So instead of applying them in single-use plastics and disposable materials that have just a life used by the consumer of 1 minute or until 10, like it should be applied to materials that will, that will last years, that will be like indoors in the houses, that will have accelerated and facilitated recycling system. That's also like not just by the consumer, and I speak by myself. So a lot of time we want to recycle, but it's not up just to us. It's like all network that needs to be functionally working and cooperating for recycling be at the most high rate of percentage and performance. So yes, so basically that was how I changed my perspective, Teresa, was of like learning and being aware of all the factors, all the interdisciplinarity that involves to solve this. And I believe that all the problems, because the ocean is an interconnected system. So it also demands interconnected solutions.
Because the problem is that the anti-plastic solution is not a solution if you don't have a solution for being anti-plastic, I suppose. So Dr. Atsushi Sunami, I wonder if you think that the problem of the plastic will grow in the future, if it will continue to rise, if we will have, if you think it might be a source of conflict and tension among nations. How do you see it? What is your perspective on this issue?
Yeah, Teresa, I think unfortunately this issue is not going to go away so quickly. And I was going to originally to show some of the statistics that our researchers have done, looking at the source of the plastics and also the amount of, or the sort of the percentage of each countries of actually recycling and managing the plastic waste. And it's unfortunate to say that Asian countries are very still needs a long way to go. And we expect these economies to grow continuously. And of course, that would mean that there's more usage of plastics, and the more demand side of the plastics would continue unless we find the alternative materials and to replace that. But at the moment, I can see that this trend is not going to be easily reversed. And yeah, that's why not only finding a replacement of the plastics or to reduce the usage of plastics, but we have to find a way to recycle it. So make sure that these plastics not ends up in the ocean. And Tiago was mentioning about the sewage problems, the systems. I mean, it's not just the developing countries' problem. It's the way that we actually model our economy. And in Japan, there's so many convenience stores now that operates 24 hours, and a lot of products, the consumer products, are wrapped into a more individual packages, because we have now we are in a lifestyle of either living alone or a very small number of families. In old days, it's a bigger family. So, all these consumer products are really getting to more individual size and smaller size, and it's all increasing the usage of plastics. And the COVID, and that created a, like Uber Eats and everything. Now everything is online. We order things instead of going to the restaurant. And they all come with the plastics, trays or, and any other things. So, all these things are going on at the moment. So it's not easy actually to see this this sort of trend being reversed. So, and that's why we need to continue our dialogue and make sure that we, have to really come up with the model so that every developing countries and the growing economies can also adapt easily to really increase the level of recycling and managing, and then on to the next phase of ultimately replacing the plastics.
And do you think that that technical support for developing countries came from this global framework, from an international treaty, for instance?
Yes, and also I think that's what Friends of Ocean Action and the World Economic Forum, for instance, and we're discussing the multi nationals and large corporations that provides this a global supply chain system, and we are trying to, if they were able to introduce some of the solutions to this, then that would automatically reach out to the most part of the world because of their huge side of the global supply chain. And I think, either you work with them, and also we have to work with local communities, and including countries like small island states that we often discuss with, even like countries like Palau, Marshall Islands. One island alone and one island state alone cannot develop a very efficient recycling system. But if you can put together a collection of a group of island states, and to have the kind of a cycling system that would manage the plastic waste going into the ocean at the same, that sort of new innovative a policy solution would also be important to address. So,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Eugenia Barroca, do you think that this international agreement could also help organizations like yours fighting for plastic pollution? Because in terms of communicating science, it's a better way for communicating science, because we will have goals and the targets, like for instance, the climate change United Nations Convention. Do you think this could facilitate the fighting for plastic pollution also on your side?
Of course, I think that mainly because that there will be a support structure, and if it is an international treaty, it means that there is a global support system for all the citizens that want to take this ocean action. So it already exists punctually in some countries and so on, but to be aligned and cooperating like internationally and globally, I believe that our efforts would improve and amplify their scale of impact as well, much more, because in truth, like everything that ACOA does is aligned with the SDG 14 of protecting marine life. So we just want that we have more solutions and amplify their impact as more as we can, because the goal and the ideal would be that in the end of this decade of ocean science, we would be in a completely different system, and the oceans will be like better managed and recovering already. That would be the ideal point. And I believe we can use the decade to act, to obviously discuss, align and cooperate, but to start acting. And that could be one of the possibilities that I think it could accelerate, as Bernhard said, that is essential, that we need to accelerate the process And by having a legal support system that is aligned globally, I can give the example of Anchor, that is also by some cooperation international, just focusing the Atlantic, but it could be one example like of many others of those kind of the positive results from what happens when governments align their policies, and like, because also it's managing and saving resources. It's being sustainable by doing that, because we have different expert research groups in different countries. We have different discoveries, and every person has different knowledge. So if we are all collaborating and sharing, I believe that the results and the place where it can get us will be much further than where we are now.
Thank you so much, Eugenia Barroca. Dr. Tiago Pitta Cunha, I think this question might be for you from the audience. How do you feel about the application of the European Union recovery funds to tackle this problem?
Well, yeah, they are definitely, they should be definitely a very important instrument for this matter. Now, I also fear the following, at least from a European perspective. I fear that in this decade, we run the risk of having increased substantially the ambition for climate action, as we did through the Green Deal and through everything that is involved now of this Recovery and Resilience Pact, which in a way which in a way also is meant to finance the Green Deal, and leave the oceans as a as a less important matter with a ambition much lower. I say this because, for instance, if we look into the international scene and we understand that the High Seas Treaty, which has been on the making almost for 15 years under the UN auspices, is not going anywhere, I understand that doesn't seem to be a level playing field between oceans and climate, but we will not solve the ocean problem, the climate problem, if we don't have viable oceans. I think that everyone will need to understand that. Everyone needs to understand that, you know, first we need the oceans, but the oceans now need us. And so for that, I think that we would need to be bolder, so to say. Atsushi said we should not go business as usual, and I totally agree with this. And this is why the idea of having an international agreement, it's important. I say that governments and states are at different levels, stages of development. You have developed states and developing states. You cannot ask the same to all of them. But of course, you can use the creativity of the Paris Agreement with national determined contributions and probably come up with solutions with NDCs for plastics as well. That could be something that could be developed. Now, as I said, my biggest fear is having watched the oceans away from the limelight in the first 2 decades of this year. And let me tell you that the ocean has been on since probably 5 years ago, since maybe the UN Ocean Conference in 2017, since the plastics became an issue, since the problems of hurricanes or typhoons have become an issue with the results, the impacts of climate change. So I say that we should even be more ambitious. And if I go back to Rise Up for the Seas, you know, this blue call to action, here we also have a very clear ask, which is that for the oceans to not to lose this decade, the 2030 decade, we need to have, by the mid of this decade, a summit at the highest possible level. We need to kick off with the UN Oceans Conference in Lisbon in 2022, but we need to aspire to a heads of state and government conference on the ocean, because the ocean problems need a global response, which will include marine protected areas for the high seas. It will include reducing plastic pollution in the oceans, will include dealing with biodiversity loss in the oceans, biomass, pollution, all the aspects of the oceans. And I think that is very important that all organizations start kind of trying to work on how to do it, not what to do it. Because Rise Up for the Oceans, and excuse me for raising it so many times, but Rise Up for the Oceans, it's already a list of what needs to be done to save the oceans. But the problem is that we need more than the list of what needs to be done. We will need to understand how we can do it. And here in the plastics, we've been discussing this in this panel. And this is why I commend the Lisbon Club and your moderation, Teresa, and all our friends here in the panel, that we've been discussing that for plastics we need campaigning, so public awareness, what Eugenia is doing and SOAS is doing is very important. The Oceano Azul Foundation launched a program 2 years ago in which we coordinate all the citizen movements in Portugal for beach cleanups. We want all this constituency to understand that working together plays much better than working fragmented. We do that, but then of course we have the innovation issue that everyone spoke here. Bernhard spoke about the tires. We need green tires, so we hope the industry will come with answers. We need to solve the problems in many ways, because it's interesting that people associate plastic pollution to the oceans, but unfortunately, plastic pollution, microplastics are everywhere. They are in the ocean, they are very heavily in the soil, and they are in the atmosphere, because unfortunately there is scientific research that evidences that we have rain with microplastics on the earth nowadays. So it's a very complex matter that really requires a very bold and very courageous action by the part of, I hope, the European Union, and I hope the international community as a whole.
Thank you so much. Tiago, Pitta, Cunha. Eugenia, what do you think? I mean, this is. I'm sorry. Where is the question? I think this will be a question more for you. In what opinion, what paper with the plastic liner is not recyclable? What are they more sustainable? Could you answer this question to our audience? It's a question from the audience.
Understand, Teresa, it's paper with the plastic.
Paper with plastic liner. I think that might be the, for instance, the milk packages, or
maybe those like pamphlets, like publicity papers that have both plastic and paper. As far as I'm aware, like I'm not aware of a solution, like specifically of the SOA solutions. There is not one specific regarding that, and I also work more for the leadership and not the accelerator program, so I don't know that in a big deep. I'm sorry for that, but I will just mention that it was mentioned. I show an example of using the crust foam that was using shrimp cells, but as it was already mentioned, there are other examples, and also using algae, and one of these examples is Lollyware. It was participant on our first cohort of accelerator, and they are pioneers on using seaweed for disposable products. So I don't know exactly the answer for that, but I believe at least these two companies could help improving that situation. And I would also just like to add a paragraph to what Tiago just said, that Sustainable Ocean Alliance also supports Rise Up, and I believe it's an incredible cause to unite our efforts for the protection of our ocean. And also that the young ocean leaders in SUA started last year to write their Blue New Deal, and especially led by the youth on the Youth Policy Advisory Council, EPAC group, and one member of this group will be present in this conference tomorrow, that is Marina Porto, in the panel with the Minister of the Sea of Portugal. So I just wanted to share this, because Tiago also mentions the Green Deal, so we also defend that we need a Blue New Deal, like that is, we are not the only one speaking about it or working on that, but that really focus the ocean as the central key to balance our climate and to recover our planet's health.
Thank you so much, Eugenia Barroca. Dr. Atsushi Sunami, this is the decade for the science ocean, and you also mentioned the importance of science, and Tiago and Bernhard, all of you have been mentioning the importance of science to kick off the research for solutions to plastic. So what is your country doing during this decade for ocean research, science ocean research,
yes.
and related also to the problem of plastic, of course?
Yes, we have now establishing the Japan's Decade of Ocean Science Committee. It's a government committee that would bring together the scientists and people that are working on the ocean to formalize the Japan's effort on the contribution to the UN Decade of Ocean Science. And I think, I'm not sure whether the Portugal or other countries would organize such a national committee, but if that happens, we are very much eager to work with and share the information and whatnot. And one of the things that we are doing, for instance, with a dialogue with China, is to have the set of the common standards for monitoring the marine plastics and microplastics, and because there are many several ways of the scientists actually monitoring and observing the sort of the magnitude and the characteristics of the microplastics in different parts of the ocean. And if we could standardize and that would bring all together some of the data that we can all share under the same standard measure, and then we can also address a common kind of ways to tackle this problem. And the scientists can all, I mean, that would be the way the scientists can really help us to put together the monitoring data from different part of the ocean, and together, and we can understand where it's coming from and where it's going to, and also the seasonal effects as well as the climate crisis effect. And as I also mentioned that that we are now also monitoring the Arctic Ocean. The Arctic is where the all these currents, at least on the northern sphere, was really collects all the plastics into. And what we are finding is some of the ghost nets and the waste from the fisheries and the plastics that are really being concentrated in the Arctic area. And we are now building a new icebreaker science research vessel in Japan, and where we can bring all that into the Arctic and also try to monitor this. So there are many ways of scientists internationally can work together to tell us how bad it is, where it's being concentrated, what should our policy focus would be in effectively, addressing this issue. So Japan, hopefully, by creating this national committee, would really send this message and important voice with a UNESCO IOC people, group. So that's what we are doing at the moment. Thank you for asking.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Atsushi Sunami. Bernhard Friess, what is the European Commission preparing for this Ocean Science Decade? Bernhard? Yes, Bernhard? Bernhard Friess?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, sorry.
Hello, I thought, yes, I was not hearing you. I think you wanted to comment, to make a remark on Tiago Pitta Cunha comment, I suppose.
If I may, yeah. I think it's a very good question. Where does all the money for the recovery go, right? And there is a very large amount of funds and funding and money available. at the moment and being made available by the European Union. And I think it's really relevant to ask, actually, is it going to these causes that we are here trying to resolve, right? And what's important to realize, and Tiago knows that very well, is that the decisions about how these funds are being spent are made in Lisbon, in Paris, in Berlin, and they're made actually not even in the capitals, but they're made at the local level sometimes. You know, are we going to fund, I don't know, a new water cleaning station, or are we going to put it into new roads? And these decisions are being made now. So one of the things we can do, we all can do as citizens, and I guess the SAO and others have that on their radar screen, is to try to make sure that these funds for recovery, of which there are a lot, go precisely into the kind of things you want to achieve here. So very important, I think. It's very important because it's happening right now, and in the next few months, these decisions. That's my main point. So it's an encouragement really to say, look, it's great what you're doing here because you're raising awareness about that, and it should feed back immediately to not only the political level at the national level, but to the regions, to the local decision makers who are sitting at the lever of investment decisions. The important thing is to break the trend, right? To break the trend, which goes in the wrong direction because there's more plastic being produced, more plastic leaking, more pollution, and to reverse the trend. And so we need a big effort. Huh? That's really, really, really important to get that traction. And one way, and of course, the important way of breaking the trend is to really inspire the public and maintain that awareness that we have, thankfully we have about the health of the oceans. And so I'm looking to, I think what the Stable Ocean Alliance are doing is great, and you know, clearly I'm looking to that organization and others to help us and to work with us to try to do that, because you know, having young ocean leaders going out and making the case, I think that's exactly what we need now. We somehow need to find the lever, the leverage to break this trend that goes in the wrong direction. And another point, you know, and that I say to any government in Europe, I don't know whether Portugal has been over the years, you know, such a great nation in terms of promoting the case of the oceans, and of course you do that because you're a maritime nation, and if there's any good ally we've ever had in actually promoting the case of the oceans, it's Portugal and very few others. But I say that to any government, if you're thinking of giving new licenses for oil and gas exploitation, platforms in the sea, things like that, think twice, do something else. There are many other technologies and many other investments that can be made that are not harmful, because plastics is the flip side of oil and gas. It's very clear, and so we have to take that view as well. But important thing to break the trend and to use the funds that we have now available to make that recovery that we need in the right direction, to have a green recovery, and to really make that concretely happen on the ground.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me read one of the questions of the audience. Two panelists have now suggested ocean summits and blue deals to ensure the ocean is not forgotten, but would it not be far more effective to put ocean in the climate COP, the biodiversity COP, transport summits, energy summits, to ensure the message, the need for the health of ocean and the solutions of a healthy ocean can provide will go beyond the ocean bubble to policymakers to take the ocean into account. And that's a bit what Dr. Sunami already mentioned in the treaty, I suppose, but do you want to comment a bit this question? I mean, if we could integrate all the plastic pollution in the existing instrumental.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. So I guess you know, Tiago and Tiago should answer this, but you know, we have been collaborating together on the COP every year when we host the Ocean Day Action Day during the COP to make sure that within the framework of the COP, the ocean at least takes the central stage or close to the central stage. And we are also addressing the blue economy, sustainable blue economy issue within the discussions of World Economic Forum, for instance, or even the CBD, and or other international existing platform, and to make sure the ocean is not forgotten. But I think also though, we need to have a ocean platform that would bring other issues to that platform in a sort of reverse manner as well. And I think the high-level panel under the UN could be one such an effort. But also our ocean, which is an international conference on the ocean dialogue, unfortunately, it has been postponed after Palau was scheduled to host this event last year. But all these things are dedicated to the ocean. But then, of course, the challenge is to bring other stakeholders to the ocean event, not just the ocean people together, talking about the importance of ocean. So that exchange of different platforms are going to be very important. That's why I mentioned G20, and also I also mentioned the expo that we'll be hosting in 2025. So yes, the question was very a good question, and I think that's something that we're and Tiago, for instance, may wanted to jump in, but we are trying to be in that platform as well. Thank you.
Tiago, do you want to jump in quickly because our time is running?
Very quickly, you know that this question is a question relating on how do we produce governance. And you know, it's very difficult to produce integrated governance. We work in silos as human societies, as human organizations. And normally we tend to have a human activity with a solution for a problem, and that's how we deal with issues. The importance of having the ambition of getting to a global ocean pact in the future is that at a very high level is that is exactly the way you will have then the ocean in the other framework conventions and in the other processes, because the fact is that so far this is not happening. The ocean was completely absent in 2009 on the first attempt to have a climate pact in Copenhagen. The ocean got one word in the Paris Agreement in 2015 in Paris, one word in the preamble. The ocean finally got in 2019 in Madrid the nexus between oceans and climate change. We will believe that we took us 20 years of UNFCCC to get into the nexus between oceans and climate. So we definitely need to move up, to step up a gear and to move up into a different kind of operation, of the way we operate, I would say, to solve the ocean crisis. And this is why if you will have a global pact for the ocean, you can address the climate issues with the ocean, the biodiversity issues with the ocean, the pollution issues with the ocean, the biodiversity issues with the ocean, the biomass issues with the ocean. You can actually address those problems. We should never forget, we cannot breathe without the oceans. The oxygen is very important. We cannot drink water without the oceans. We cannot live, and no species can live without the oceans in this planet. And this is what I would like to say again. I will probably just repeat this sentence. The ocean needs us, but now we also need the oceans.
Thank you, Tiago, Cunha. And final question for all of you. And what to do about the plastic is already in the ocean? I mean, it's an utopia to take off this plastic from the ocean, right? From the perspective point of view, technical and economically, that will be not viable. So, what do you think that's an utopia, a dream, a science fiction? And we should concentrate our efforts on land.
Can I start?
Who goes first? Bernhard, go ahead, please.
I'll be brief. Thank you, Teresa. It's a very good question. Of course, we need to make an effort where we can. and it needs to be supported. And fishermen can do a good job in just fishing for plastic, and we can try to clean up the ocean gyres and so on. As you say, it is not going to be the solution. I think as mankind, we have to accept that we have done harm and we cannot fully repair it. But what is really important is that we don't do more harm and we stop the trend. That's really important, and it's important for our children, basically, not for us even, but for our children. So that really is something we need to take seriously and focus on. Okay, thank you. Dr. Atsushi Sunami?
Yes, I have a colleague who has actually started his own company to find a solution to clean up the ocean. And you can study the currents, and there are several hotspots where automatically some of these plastics that are floating will be collected to. And you can find a business model where you can go out there and effectively collect those. But this is, of course, it's not enough. There's other microplastics that's very, it's already out in the ocean. There are other ways, maybe using kelp as a curtain to, collect some of the microplastics using those materials. And so there are some innovations that are coming out of in trying to solve. So we should not give up, of course. But I think, meanwhile, we have to also find a solution to stop those plastic reaching into the ocean. So I'm still hopeful, but again, maybe our efforts to really to address this as the key problem, that would then bring all these young, talented minds to go out there and then find a solution for us. Thank you.
Eugenia Barroca, you are an active person on campaigns and cleaning campaigns. So how do you see this problem?
I definitely don't think that is an utopia, because there is several examples, as was already mentioned, but I would mention the Ocean Cleanup, founded by Boyan Salt. He's my age, so I've been following because he started it when he was 18. And even that it looks like an utopia and he's having challenges, obviously, but he's trying actively to clean the plastics, at least the macro and mesoplastics floating in the surface of the ocean, that they accumulate and form as kind of new continents. So that's being tried, and there are other solutions in terms of cleaning the microplastics as well. So I think we should never stop trying and innovating and finding those solutions. But as it was mentioned, and as I already said, I think we need to act from all directions. So yes, we should try to clean what is already in the ocean, but obviously we should stop to let more plastic to arrive there. And that passes a lot by ocean literacy itself. I've gave more emphasis to innovation and solutions because I think it's also important, but ocean literacy is in the base, because for a person to find a solution, it needs to be informed and aware of the problem, and also be informed and educated about the tools that can help them to build the solutions. So ocean literacy, for example, I would highlight the Blue School program that is pioneered also in Portugal. And I think it's being an example already international that other countries should take to teach those principles of ocean literacy since kindergarten to high school, and hopefully in all the degrees. So I would like to end up like this, that basically if everyone is aware, everyone will want to act to protect it.
Okay, thank you so much, Eugenia Barroca. Tiago, Cunha, please, do you want to make a final comment on that topic, and then we will finish?
I don't want to, for the version of how great it was to be with such friends and colleagues in this panel, and again to say congratulations to the Lisbon Club for which is a very interesting think tank for doing this conference on oceans, a think tank that normally does not deal with oceans. Has brought the issue, and this is also interesting, and to thank you, Teresa, and especially to thank Fernando Cardoso, because of course he is the Secretary General who has invited me to join, and he has worked very hard for this conference on a very efficient manner. So thank you very much to him as well.
So thank you so much. Let me just announce that the next panel will start at 11:30 a.m. and the topic is the extending continental shelves. I want also to thank you to the four speakers and the audience for being here and to discuss these topics and this global crisis. Thank you so much, and have a good day, please.